Hey guys, thanks for checking the video out. This is Nephis here, and in this video I'll be showing you guys a PvE Nightblade Healer build that will work in every single dungeon, guaranteed, whether it's the harder DLC dungeons or the easiest dungeons. And it's going to be quite a fun playstyle and engaging build, plus the gear you'll need is not too time demanding nor too expensive, so let's get on with it. Now the focus of this build is to provide the base healing per your role as a group healer, obviously, while also doing an outstanding amount of damage, particularly in trash fights to help the group along, whether they're experienced or inexperienced. Now, before some of you, give me some flack for saying, oh, well, why don't you have this, why don't you have that set? Of course, there's gonna be best in slot gear, but this is sort of gonna be a build that steps away from having things like Infallible Aether and No Longer Remain, just having fun, but at the same time also providing, being of great help for your group, being of great assistance to your group. So gear-wise, we're going to look at this here real quick. Monster sets will vary. Now, with the trash setup for dungeons or DLC dungeons, you can do Battle Org 2-piece, and this is going to play into our damage. And now Battle Orgs, for those of you who don't know what Battle Orgs does, it does give us a passive 129 weapon damage and 129 spell damage. Scales very nicely with our potions and such and our buffs. The 2-piece bonus also says when you use an ultimate ability, you gain weapon and spell damage for 10 seconds. 10 seconds equal to twice the amount of total ultimate consumed. And this is going to be beneficial for us as Nightblade healers because typically 2 of our ultimates are pretty high cost, relatively high cost, like Bowstring Darkness is 200 ultimate, Soul Siphon is 150 ultimate, Barrier if we ever need is 200 ultimate. So it's going to be a decent amount of spell damage we're going to get to boost our base healing and our base damage. The primary 5-piece we're going to get into here shortly, but I want to just talk about the other monster sets here real quick. 2 Battle Orgs is a consideration for trash fights or even boss fights. We also have 2 Bogdan. Now, Bogdan is still probably the most powerful raw healing monster set even after the nerf in Scalebreaker. So this is a huge consideration as well for healing intensive fights. And we also have Iceheart. This is going to be, again, for trash or even for particular boss fights where you may want a free shield if you don't have the bar space. And with Nightblade healers, there sometimes isn't enough bar space to put in a shield or a selfish skill for your own. So this is going to be a pretty good set to consider. Now, Sentinel Rokugams, this is going to be for your stam DPS if everyone in your group is a stam DPS. And it's a huge amount of sustain for the stam DPS, especially on fights where you're just standing still and DPSing. Now the final 2 sets I'm going to mention here are Symphony of Blades. Now Symphony of Blades, it adds a nice 4% healing done for the 1-piece bonus, and the 2-piece bonus, it's really powerful. It's really powerful in PvP, it's really powerful especially in 4-man PvE content. It's also used in trials. Now Symphony of Blades, when you heal an ally who is under 50% of their primary resource, you give them Meridia's Favor, a very unique buff, which restores 2.3k Magicka or stamina every 1 second for 6 seconds, and it has a 12-second cooldown essentially, and this will help your group sustain quite a bit if they're having troubles or if your DPS is low CP, and so forth. And this also helps them when they get back up after you res them or whatever. Now the last set we're going to be mentioning in terms of monster set is Troll King. Troll King, it's not as powerful in terms of utility compared to the other sets we just reviewed. But it is actually a pretty decent set at times. When you heal yourself or an ally, if they are still below 50% health, their health recovery is increased by 1548 for 10 seconds. And depending on the foods your DPS may be using, this is actually pretty good. Health recovery is basically free healing every 2 seconds. So most people have anywhere between 400 to 700 health recovery, including tanks. So this is going to give them about 2k heals per every 2 seconds, essentially. So this is a pretty good set to have in certain scenarios where you do expect people to dip below 50% health. Ideally, people shouldn't be dipping below 50% health, but shit happens, right, for healers. Now, the 5-piece primary set is going to be Mother's Sorrow. Now, Mother's Sorrow is going to give us max Magicka and a lot of spell crit. and this is going to be essential into our stats as both a DPS and a healer build. So we're going to have 5-piece Mother Sorrow on the body, and for our secondary set, now you don't have to gold out this craftable jewelry. It's going to be Cold Harbor's favorite. And this is a set that's not really been looked at much, but it is a really fun set to use, especially in dungeons. Basically it gives us max stats for both stamina and magicka, and the max stam is actually pretty helpful for us because there tends to be a lot more dodge rolling, breaking free for healer rules or even DPS rules in 4-man content. Because in a trial, it's nothing like a trial where you have 2 tanks taking care of almost everything, or more people to take the aggro for you. So the max stam is actually pretty good. It's pretty comparable to a set that I used a long time ago for the 1-piece Dami House. So that is a really nice stat bonus for a 3rd-piece bonus. The 4-piece bonus is going to be, again, 129 spell damage and 129 weapon damage, and this is going to scale very well with our setup. Now, the 5-piece bonus for Cold Harbor's favorite is really interesting. This is the fun part. When you heal yourself or an ally, summon Cadwell's Noble Mount Honor, who after 2 seconds casts a healing spell on you and allies around them that heals for 14.7k over 4 seconds. That is a lot of healing done in such a short amount of time if you do proc it, and also a lot of damage done if you do proc Cadwell's Mount Honor. And this is going to be on the front bar here, or not the front bar, but on one bar here. As you can see, that was the mount. It's going to be on the Destro staff bar actually, and this is going to give us the freedom to choose whether we want to proc the heal or the damage part, because as you can see, when we reach further on, it's actually a pretty long tooltip. When you damage an enemy, summon Cadwell's Noble Mount Honor, same mount, who after 2 seconds explodes, damaging enemies around them for 15.7k over 4 seconds. So this is a pretty great thing to have on one bar instead of having it on 5-piece body. That's why we have 5-piece Mother Sorrow on the body, to give us crit, an insane amount of crit on both bars for both healing and damage. And also Cold Harbor's favorite, we want to be able to choose whether we want to proc the damage portion of the set or the healing portion of the set. And it's a really fun set to use. I highly recommend people to try it out. And on the Resto staff bar, we're going to have Master's Resto. Now this can be interchangeable with the other ability altering Resto staves. But Master Resto is pretty much the most powerful staff this patch, for Scalebreaker specifically, because it's so much stamina back for your group. It's pretty insane. 740 stamina back every tick of the initial heal of Grand Healing. And if you have nothing else to do during the 4-man content, you can literally just spam it to give them 740 stamina back every second. And this of course applies to tanks who are blocking and they don't get stamina back when they're blocking. So it's a very powerful Resto staff to have. Very easily acquirable through Bet Dragonstar Arena. Bet Dragonstar Arena nowadays is pretty easy to do due to the power creep, so you can definitely go for this one. If you don't have the time or the group for Dragonstar Arena, you can also do, like, I believe, a normal Black Rose Prison for just the Black Rose Resto staff. It doesn't have to be perfected. Same thing for the Asylum Resto staff. It does not have to be perfected. You can get Asylum Resto staff in a Veteran Asylum Sanctorium. It does not have to be hard mode. It can just be a +0 or +1 instance. So that's the gear, and traits wise we want all divines on the body pieces, 3 arcane on the jewelry. And if you think, well, I don't want to upgrade, I don't even want to spend too much gold on upgrading my jewelry to blue or purple or whatever, it, again, doesn't have to be gold. I just gold it out because I have OCD basically. But if you want to save on the cost of it, you could do like you could buy Mother's Sword jewelry for 3-piece and put 2 Mother's jewelry on the body and 3 Cold Harbor's favorite on the body with a staff on the front bar. There's a lot of ways you can cut down the cost of this build, but I'm not going to get too much into that. You can try to figure it out for yourself, as prices are subject to change if you check out TTC or Master Merchant. But yeah, that is the gear traits. That is what we want. Enchantment wise, all max magicka. More max magicka, more heals, more damage. Now, enchantment wise on the jewelry, we want all spell damage. And if you're worried about magic recovery or your sustain this patch, no need to worry because of how the healer playstyle is. If you are interested in what the healer playstyle is and other things about healing as of the Scalebreaker patch, check out the video on the upper right corner. Now, on the Destro staff bar, and we do want a lightning staff bar because this is going to put things off balance, and a lot of damage specs have things spec'd into 75 points into Thaumaturge or elsewhere in the ritual tree to get their Exploiter passive or Exploiter perk, which increases their damage done against off-balanced enemies by 10%. You can only put people or enemies off balance with a lightning staff bar after they're concussed. So that's why you want the lightning staff bar, to boost your group DPS and your own DPS. And we want the enchantment of weapon damage enchantment. We want to boost our spell damage by quite a bit, and this is why we have the infused trait on this staff, and this is going to boost our damage even more. So that's pretty much why we have that. And for the enchantment wise on your resto staff, whether it's a Black Rose Asylum or Master Resto staff, I do highly recommend Precise this patch in addition to using 3 spell damage glyphs. And this is going to boost your base healing by quite a bit, your crit healing by quite a bit. You'll be doing damage a bit more if you do have damage skills on your bars for the rest of the staff. So it's a win-win no matter what you see it. And the ritual, I know a lot of people have asked me since the Scalebreaker Healer guide video I did, well, you forgot to mention the ritual Mundus. In my opinion, the ritual Mundus was never really needed prior to Scalebreaker, and it's not still needed this patch either. And in terms of the tooltip, it's not a huge increase. I mean, 14% or whatever more healing done sounds like a lot, but in reality, I don't think it's that significant. So we want to aim for more crit healing. And this is actually pretty good as a Nightblade Healer because we are all about crit, am I right? Now, skill bar setup, I'm going to be going over trash setup first, and it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to have Refreshing Path. This is our class AoE heal, 2.1k every second with everyone inside of it. Also gives us a huge speed boost, Major Expedition, and we have it for 4 seconds even after we leave the AoE. So it's pretty nice for moving through the dungeon. And Healthy Offering. Now this is a skill you're going to have on for both trash and boss fights. Healthy Offering you should not really use as sort of a burst heal. You could, but I don't recommend it. And we're going to be focusing primarily more on heal over times as a Nightblade Healer. And Healthy Offering we're going to pretty much use to proc Minor Mending. Minor Mending is a huge buff. Templars have it. It's one of the many factors that makes Templars one of the best healing classes. And here we have, as Nightblade Healers, Minor Mending on demand. And that's 8% more healing done to ourselves, to everybody else. It's pretty insane. Blockade of Storms, we're going to have it obviously to concuss and also put off off-balance enemies. And we have Mystic Orb. Now you do have a choice of going between Mystic Orb or Energy Orb. Energy Orb heals, but Mystic Orb is going to play more into our damage as the healer. And this going through the pack of mobs or enemies, it's a lot of damage, especially when your group synergizes off of that one orb. It's a lot. The synergy does a lot of damage. Combustion, like on this tooltip, it says causing the orb to explode for X amount of magic damage to nearby enemies and restores their sustain. However, this tooltip is not accurate because the person who synergizes off of the orb will do a lot more damage. If they are a DPS, they're going to do a lot more damage than what your tooltip says, because the synergy they pop from the orb scales off of their max stats, not yours. And Blur is gonna be our go-to morph now. I was thinking about this, like, well, wouldn't Phantasmal Escape be better than Mirage for certain instances? Maybe, but at the same time you do have a source of free Major Expedition, so that'll help with snares quite a bit in snare heavy 4-man fights. So we're gonna actually go with Mirage, which gives us Minor Resolve and Minor Ward, which is a decent armor mitigation buff, and we still do get the Major Evasion buff, and that's Major Evasion alone is a lot of damage mitigation against AoE attacks, so it's a win-win. Reaper's Mark, this is going to be, again, you could use this for trash to get Major Berserk, so that's also a consideration. Grim Focus, this is a matter of debate. I don't think you really need it as a healer, considering your mitigation is typically pretty low compared to even the Nightblade tank, and Nightblade tanks do get a lot of benefit out of using Merciless Resolve. So I don't really recommend it for Nightblade healers, but you can try it if you'd like. And for the ultimate bar, this is going to be a pretty fun portion of the Nightblade healer build in general, or whatever Nightblade healer out there might be. This ultimate slot is going to be a flex slot for trash. You could do Shooting Star. You get max Magicka and Magicka recovery passively just from slotting. You can also use it as an active ultimate to help your group DPS. You can also slot In-Cap Strike or Soul Harvest. Either one Soul Harvest if you think you can kill. Well, you can certainly kill trash with these bar setups for sure. So you can do like Soul Harvest. If not, if you want to go more into the healer spec with this build, you can go with In-Cap Strike, because In-Cap Strike gives Reeve, which gives you 100 Magicka and stamina back every second, every time you hit a enemy that's affected by a negative effect. So either morph will really work. Soul Harvest will be really nice for ad heavy dungeon fights. And for the other skills on the bar, we have Illustrious Healing. Now, Illustrious Healing is going to be our go-to morph besides Healing Springs. We're not really going to spam Healing Springs anymore as a Scalebreaker as healers. And we're just going to put down this really long 12-second heal per time down for the group. And that's pretty much it. And then you also have a secondary AoE heal with this Refreshing Path. And it's going to be pretty much you rotating between Refreshing Path, putting on an orb, putting a 12-second blockade down, and an Illustrious Heal down here as well, wherever the group may be. Proxy Death is primarily for trash. I don't recommend using this for boss fights, but it is a lot of damage once you keep stacking Mystic Orb, Blockade, Proxy Death up, and then you're doing Drain Essence, while your Cold Harbor's favorite is gonna proc off of the damage. So it's pretty insane how much damage you can do AoE wise, and it's pretty fun watching everything die with or without your DPS. And I will put out more videos of this healer build out in terms of dungeons, so I'll put out more dungeon play videos in the near future with this build, for those of you curious to see in action. Also, Combat Prayer. Combat Prayer is going to be our staple burst heal. As a Nightblade healer, it's a great heal as well because it grants Minor Berserk, Minor Resolve, and Minor Ward to your DPS and your tank. So it's very essential to have in our healer toolkit. Radiating Regeneration. This is going to be our bread and butter as well as a healer dispatch in general. Radiating Regeneration gives us a huge amount of healing done without the consequences of being an AoE. It's actually stronger than Illustrious Healing in terms of crit healing as well. So it's actually a really good heal. It hits up to 3 people, including yourself. So this is going to hit everyone in your group at one point or another in a 4-man content. It's almost literally impossible to die once you have your stacked heals going. And for the trash bar setup, the last skill, Sap Essence. Sap Essence is so much healing in a trash fight or ad heavy boss fights, and it's really fun to use. You do a lot of damage. Remember that you have around 40,000 max Magicka. Your spell damage is not a joke. Look at this. This is unbuffed. This is like 2,100 in spell damage unbuffed. If we pop a potion, that's 2,538. I mean, and then you get other things going, like the infused weapon damage enchant for 452 spell damage. You're already over 3,000 spell damage at one point. And it's a lot of damage, a lot of healing. Soul Siphon, this is going to be our go-to healing ultimate. It's significant healing done. I mean, it's like 13.3k heal burst, and then an additional 35k health over 4 seconds to everyone. And the radius is 28 meters. A lot of people think it's like Soul Tether, where you have to like go up to someone and then, you know, activate it, and then it's gonna tether to them. No, it's not tethered. It's actually just healing. And then in addition to this huge amount of burst heals and the short amount of burst heal over time, we also get Major Vitality. 30% more healing received for 4 seconds. This is huge, especially for fights that require heal checks like Veteran, Moongrave Fane, Hard Moon. This is going to be a very significant skill to use. I would highly recommend always having it. For trash, you could do Shooting Star. You get max Magicka and Magicka recovery passively just from slotting it. You can also use it as an active ultimate to help your group DPS. You can also slot In-Cap Strike or Soul Harvest. Either one Soul Harvest if you think you can kill. Well, you can certainly kill trash with these bar setups for sure. So you can do like Soul Harvest. If not, if you want to go more into the healer spec with this build, you can go with In-Cap Strike, because In-Cap Strike gives Reeve, which gives you 100 Magicka and stamina back every second, every time you hit a enemy that's affected by a negative effect. So either morph will really work. Soul Harvest will be really nice for ad heavy dungeon fights. And for the other skills on the bar, we have Illustrious Healing. Now, Illustrious Healing is going to be our go-to morph besides Healing Springs. We're not really going to spam Healing Springs anymore as a Scalebreaker as healers. And we're just going to put down this really long 12-second heal per time down for the group. And that's pretty much it. And then you also have a secondary AoE heal with this Refreshing Path. And it's going to be pretty much you rotating between Refreshing Path, putting on an orb, putting a 12-second blockade down, and an Illustrious Heal down here as well, wherever the group may be. Proxy Death is primarily for trash. I don't recommend using this for boss fights, but it is a lot of damage once you keep stacking Mystic Orb, Blockade, Proxy Death up, and then you're doing Drain Essence, while your Cold Harbor's favorite is gonna proc off of the damage. So it's pretty insane how much damage you can do AoE wise, and it's pretty fun watching everything die with or without your group DPS. And I will put out more videos of this healer build out in terms of dungeons, so I'll put out more dungeon play videos in the near future with this build, for those of you curious to see in action. Also, Combat Prayer. Combat Prayer is going to be our staple burst heal. As a Nightblade Healer, it's a great heal as well because it grants Minor Berserk, Minor Resolve, and Minor Ward to your DPS and your tank. So it's very essential to have in our healer toolkit. Radiating Regeneration. This is going to be our bread and butter as well as a healer this patch in general. Radiating Regeneration gives us a huge amount of healing done without the consequences of being an AoE. It's actually stronger than Illustrious Healing in terms of crit healing as well. So it's actually a really good heal. It hits up to 3 people, including yourself. So this is going to hit everyone in your group at one point or another in a 4-man content. It's almost literally impossible to die once you have your stacked heals going. And for the trash bar setup, the last skill, Sap Essence. Sap Essence is so much healing in a trash fight or ad heavy boss fights, and it's really fun to use. You do a lot of damage. Remember that you have around 40,000 max Magicka. Your spell damage is not a joke. Look at this. This is unbuffed. This is like 2,100 in spell damage unbuffed. If we pop a potion, that's 2,538. I mean, and then you get other things going, like the infused weapon damage enchant for 452 spell damage. You're already over 3,000 spell damage at one point. And it's a lot of damage, a lot of healing. Soul Siphon, this is going to be our go-to healing ultimate. It's significant healing done. I mean, it's like 13.3k heal burst, and then an additional 35k health over 4 seconds to everyone. And the radius is 28 meters. A lot of people think it's like Soul Tether, where you have to like go up to someone and then, you know, activate it, and then it's gonna tether to them. No, it's not tethered. It's actually just healing. And then in addition to this huge amount of burst heals and the short amount of burst heal over time, we also get Major Vitality. 30% more healing received for 4 seconds. This is huge, especially for fights that require heal checks like Veteran, Moongrave Fane, Hard Moon. This is going to be a very significant skill to use. I would highly recommend always having it. If not, if you think you can get away with not healing and you think the fight requires more damage mitigation in the form of shields, then yes, Reviving Barrier will also be the one to go. In addition to slotting Reviving Barrier, you're going to have Magicka 8 passive active as well. Now, boss bar setups can look something like this. You still have Refreshing Path, you still have your Minor Mending on standby, you have Blockade of Storms, you have Orb still for helping sustain your group. If you have Magic DPS in your dungeon team, you can definitely slot Elemental Drain. If you only have Stam DPS, you don't have to, and you can put something else onto this like Mirage again. And on the Restless Staff bar here, we still have Illustrious Healing, Combat Prayer, Radiant Regeneration, and we have Siphoning Attacks to help us sustain ourselves if we ever do have a problem sustaining. Heavy Attacking with Restless Staff plus the Champion Points and the Tenacity with Siphoning Attacks is a huge amount of sustain already. It's debatable if you even really need it for a lot of fights. Now for the empty slot back here, you can put whatever you'd like Blood Altar. Blood Altar is going to be very useful synergy for the tank, and also apply Minor Lifesteal to everyone in your group. That's pretty nice. And a lot of people will ask me, well, don't we have a class Minor Lifesteal? I think it's Debilitate. Yes, you do, but you have to also keep in mind that this costs Magicka. And also it only lasts a very short amount of time, and it doesn't really offer a synergy to the group if they ever need it. And the synergy is a huge amount of burst healing, 65% of their max health. That's going to be huge on the tank, so Overflowing Ultra will beat out Debilitating, or Debilitate every single time. And we do have other options. Let's say, tank's not that very great, and ads keep coming to you. Mass Hysteria is going to be a pretty useful skill to have on hand, especially for ad heavy fights. And this will actually stun them and let you get away. You also do have the option of putting Mage's Light, or Inner Light, I mean. And this is going to boost our max Magicka on our Restless Staff bar to about 42.6k max Magicka. So again, more healing, more max Magicka, yippee, right? So that's pretty much it for the Restless Staff bar. I mean, everything else is going to be situational. Like, do you need purges going out? Can you get away with more damage? What else does your group need? So that's really going to be dependent on the content you're doing and what kind of group you're going to be doing it with. Another thing, the other ultimate we need to discuss is Bolstering Darkness. Bolstering Darkness is a pretty damn good ultimate. If you need heavy mitigation during a boss fight, you can have everyone just touch the ring. You don't have to stand in it like Veiled Blades. You can actually just, as it says on the tooltip, granting you and your allies major protection while inside the ring, and even after leaving it, reducing your damage taken by 30%. That's a lot of mitigation. You don't have to keep going back in to refresh the duration. As long as it's active for the 18 seconds and your DPS has touched Bolstering Darkness and they come out of it, they're gonna have it for the remaining duration of Bolstering Darkness. That's what's so good about this ultimate, and it's gonna actually allow your group, especially in dungeons which do require a higher degree of movement than some trials do, a lot of leeway with getting away with a lot of things during the fight. And also it does do a great heal through the Hidden Refresh synergy. The Hidden Refresh synergy, a little wonky, but it does work pretty well when it does work. Now before we move on to champion points, I want to mention something about the stats over here along with the race. So we have 40.5k max Magicka, and we also have 19.7k max health. And remember, this is with like 59 points into max Magicka and 5 points into health. And we also have no health enchants. And the reason why we're getting such a high amount of health, like we have minor toughness in the group or something, is because of siphoning. So wait, no, not siphoning, I'm sorry, shadow. Dark Vigor increases our max health by 3% for each shadow ability slotted. This is going to be a very strong passive for us healers. It's basically free health, right? And you can switch up your bars a little bit to make sure you have a shadow skill on each bar to make sure you get at least a 3% max health boost. So that's going to be pretty strong to take into consideration along with your ult gen. It's pretty crazy how Nightblade healers are. Max stam, it's 11k. Typically most healers set at around 9 to 10k, but remember we do have Cold Harbor's Favorite giving us an extra max stam to the pool. And in terms of food, we're going to go with buy stat food, and pretty cheap, like stuff like Mistral Banana Bunny Hash or whatever, or Solitude Salmon, whatever. Pretty cheap, pretty easy to get, and it does give us a lot of max health and a lot of max Magicka. Now, in terms of the magic recovery, it does definitely look abysmal. But again, this patch, you're not spamming orbs, you're not spamming healing springs, and as a Nightblade, your sustain is pretty great, so you don't have to worry about it at all. With a potion proc, you do get almost 1,000 magic recovery, but again, nothing really significant to worry about. Mundus Stone will be the Thief, and this is going to boost our spell crit to over 65%. And on our Destro staff bar, it's 68%, but on our Resto staff bar, it's 73%. It's a lot of like crit heals, almost guaranteed crit heals at this point. So that's why we're going to be running the Thief, not the Ritual or the Atro. Atro is going to be redundant because we don't need magic recovery, as I said. Your resistances with the Shadow passive proc for your Major Ward, Major Resolve is going to look about 16 to 18k physical and spell resistance depending on your CP setup. And that's pretty much it for the stats. Race-wise, I highly recommend being a high elf to get the most out of your spell damage, but obviously you can get away with other races. You can be Dunmer, you can be Argonian. Argonian will be a pretty strong race on the Nightblade class for sure. For healing, you can also be a Breton if you are worried about your sustain. Breton's going to be offsetting your sustain by quite a bit, and the advantages of being a high elf, besides the innate spell damage you get that scales pretty damn well in fights, is going to be our Max Magicka, which Bretons also get. But also, when we activate a class ability, we restore 640 of Magicka or Stamina based on whichever is lowest. And we're guaranteed to be almost pretty much be using a class heal at least every 8 seconds in our basic rotation as a Nightblade Healer. And the cool thing about this is this will help us get away in precarious situations. Our stamina pool, even though it's slightly higher than the healer average, may not let us get away from a boss that's lost aggro on the tank or so on. So that's going to be pretty interesting to take note of. But again, you can be Argonian, you can be Breton, you can be Dunmer, whatever. But I do highly recommend High Elf just for that spell damage. Now, your champion points will, of course, depend on the dungeons you're doing or the content you're doing. If you're doing trials, if you are going to do trials with this build and you don't have Olorime or IA or just trying to farm gear, definitely check out my website, nefisqs.com, for the proper CP allocation for red and green trees. But otherwise, it's going to be your general CP for most 4-man content, even DLC ones, even the newest Scalebreaker DLC dungeon ones. 72 Ironclad, 56 Hardy, 49 Elemental Defender, 13 Light Armor Focus, 61 Thick Skin, 19 Quick Recovery, and that's a nice 5% boost to our healing received that we do to ourselves in case, you know, it's a very healing intensive fight. 56 Warlord, breaking free. If you don't break free, you're not healing. If you're not healing, you're probably dead. 16 Sprinter, 3 Bashing Focus. And there will be times when we may need to help as healers on certain mechanics or certain adds. So these two things are pretty good, especially in things like Ruins of Mazatoon or very long dungeons like Lair Marsalok. We have 43 Tenacity, and this plays into the Wrestle Staff full heavy attack, plus the, you know, amount of sustain we can get just from heavy attacking. And we have 64 Arcanist. Now, this is kind of debatable, since you already have such low, you know, magic recovery already. You can put a huge chunk of the Arcanist into Tenacity or other CP trees over here as well, so that is really up to you. 51 Tumbling, basic 19% dodge roll cost reduction. And we also have 37 Shadow Ward in cases we need to block cast or we need to block certain mechanics. For the blue tree, we're going to have 64 Blessed and 81 Elfborn. Remember, we're focusing a lot on crit healing and also damage. So this is going to help us quite a bit. With the 23 Spell Erosion, this is going to help our damage as well. And the 56 Elemental Expert, that's going to be more spec towards damage as well, along with the 46 Thaumaturge. And that's pretty much it, guys. That is the healer build for the Nightblade class in PvE. I hope you guys really enjoy using this in dungeons. I know I have, and I will. And until next time, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, have fun, and bye.